Yeah.
I listen to you.
Yeah, so thank you. So during situations that make you feel threatened or upset, your body creates a stress response. This can cause a variety of physical symptoms, change the way you behave, and lead you to experience more intense emotions. Just what's interesting about this is someone once told me, and I quickly got out of that mess. Guys, if you want to grow old quickly, you get stressed.
Absolutely.
And allow yourself to be stressed. I was like, hang on, I want to age gracefully, not under stress.
Absolutely.
I got me out of that space very quickly. So let's talk about stress.
Yes.
What is stress?
Okay, so today we want to focus on what we call addiction to stress. But definitely before we get to that, we need to explain what stress is, so that we all do understand and move at the same level of understanding. Now, stress is your body's natural way of dealing with danger. Okay, let's try to explain this a little further. So your brain is wired for survival, which means that the moment your brain senses anything that is negative that could threaten your life, it actually throws your body into the fight or flight mode, or what we also call the survival mode. So in the survival mode, this is what we'll be doing. If you are in danger, let's say a car starts running towards you on the road, the brain sees that and knows that you're going to die if it's not going to prepare you to run away. So what it does is it then gets you into this state where the body produces the stress hormones called cortisol. Now the duty or the role or the purpose of cortisol is to prepare your body so that you're able to jump from where you are to a place which is safe. Okay, so now in doing that, this is where the issue is. In doing that, the brain literally stops the flow of blood and energy to any other body part or body system. Why? Because the brain knows that for you to be able to jump or run or scream or fight back, you need a lot more energy in your limbs and in your legs.
Wow.
So in doing so, it means that your other systems have been left exposed or uncovered. Now, the situation that I've just explained, Brita, works in a situation where, like the example that I've given, that there's a car coming, and then you get into a stress response or the survival mode, and then there's a lot of flow of blood to your arms and to your legs, and you run away from danger. After a few seconds, maybe the driver decides to get his control or the control of his car back, and they get back on the road, and you're safe. What then happens is that your system gets back to normal, which means that where the brain had stopped the flow of blood to your other organs and your other systems, that function resumes, right? And you're able to function normally. Now, the challenge with this stress response, Brita, is that it also happens in situations where your brain picks on danger that does not kill you immediately. Let's say, for example, you are here and you hear kuti, let's say your kid is in school, and you hear that the kid has fought other kids and that he or she is being suspended from school. So the moment that you hear that, the brain reads that as something which might kill you the same way it reads the danger of a car that's coming. So in doing so, your brain actually puts your body into that state as well, and it expects you to run away or fight that danger. But as you can see, this is not something that you cannot run away from, because it's something that has happened, and it's something that does not threaten your life immediately. So now what happens is your brain still produces a lot of cortisol. In fact, it instructs your adrenaline glands to produce the cortisol. So there's a lot of cortisol that is produced in your system. Now, this cortisol, when it is produced in excess and it's not being used because you're not running away or fighting anything, that's when you start feeling those sensations. I'm feeling stressed. What is happening is there has been an excess production of stress hormones, but you are not putting them to use because you are not running away. And as a result, I'm stressed out. In other words, we are saying stress on its own is very important. It is very useful. In fact, we have stress even if when, let's say you're about to go, let's say they say, okay, Brita, we want you to come and MC one of those meetings at SADC. You know, at least I know you are Jaira Shagosh master stage, but naturally you'd be like, oh my God, that platform, it's so big. I
Yeah,
need
we
to
do
prepare.
get stage fright. Trust me,
Yes.
we do get it.
All that. So when all that is happening, it's actually a stress response. What's the moment you hear something that gets you out of your comfort zone, the brain still thinks you're going to die, and it triggers that reaction. So you still feel that stress. But the good thing about that stress is that it helps you to bend the midnight candle as you prepare to MC that huge platform, right? So what then happens is after you are done with MCing or doing whatever it is, still your system gets back to normal. Okay, blood continues, resumes flowing to other parts of your bodies, right? But in a situation that I've just described, where your child has been mischievous at school and he or she is being suspended, and the more you keep thinking about it, the more the brain thinks this thing is going to kill you, and the more it produces stress hormones, and therefore your body continues to have an overflow or an overdose of the stress hormones that are not being used. So to start with, we could say that everyone goes through stress because that's the function of the brain. You know, where you hear a sound that is unusual, when you see something that is unusual, you actually get into a stress response. But as soon as that danger passes, you get back to normal. So problem starts when it's the situation that has put you into a stress response is something that is not going to go away, like economic challenges, like a very painful relationship, like a very difficult manager at work, and things like that. They still get you into that stress response or into the survival mode. So in other words, we're saying as long as you have that challenge, it means that the flow of blood to your other body parts and functions is still constricted or it's still limited. So at the end of the day, you realize that your body functions that have not been receiving enough blood and enough energy begin to get affected.
So I'm going to take you back to 2001, I believe,
Correct.
September, when there was the 9/11 situation.
Yes.
It shook the world because we witnessed things. I mean, media showed us what was actually taking place because it was footage that was witnessed by people, and they put it there. And then now you've got a business trip to travel.
Yeah.
Just a few days later, and you're thinking, I'm gonna get on a plane, and I have to go for that meeting. If I don't, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
I remember a situation whereby I was traveling at some point, and I was in New York,
right?
And this is where the Twin Towers came down.
Yeah.
And you
were actually in New York then?
After.
Or after?
Aftermath, but it's still reeling in our heads.
Yeah, very fresh.
I was watching every aeroplane flying. That for me is stress.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe you can help us to understand, because this is what you mentioned, that a car could be coming your way.
Right.
And this is traumatic, and you probably illustrate that PTSD aspect of it. The car's coming your way, you've had to jump, and it's really shook you up.
Right.
So I've got my own post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of that which happened, that
before.
Major event. In our heads, what is happening consciously to then it be embedded in our subconscious mind for us to then start living this experience, even like you're saying, it's not a reality to us. It's not privy to me because I'm not going through that exact situation, but I'm still struggling with it. Unfortunately, we watch movies where planes are crashing. And then like, do I have to go? There's no way of getting there. So help us with regard to how we interpret information that comes through our eye gate.
Right.
To get into that failing system.
Right.
Whoever's
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
So when you gave that example, it reminded me of that a plane crash that happened Yoku Ethiopian Airlines, right? So as you're saying, we used to seeing my planes crashing, but in Asia, in the sea or whatever. So this thing happened very close to home, and it really shook us. I remember there was a time that I was traveling to Tanzania. It was a few months after it had happened. I'm telling you, I was sitting on my seat and I was holding to the poor seat like this. I was traumatized, as you're saying. And I actually remember looking at my watch. Remember they said that plane crashed after 8 minutes. I was looking at my watch.
And you're also looking at the timer.
And after 8 minutes, I said, maybe we are safe. That's exactly what PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, does. So what happens is when something so devastating happens, like maybe it's the death of a loved one, or you were robbed at gunpoint, or the 9/11 event that you're talking about, the brain records that as something that is very dangerous and that is going to hurt you. So it throws you again into this fight or flight mode, when then the brain thinks that anything that is related to something that happened might actually come and kill you. So that is recorded in your, like, especially if the fear then stays with you for a long time, it then moves from your conscious mind into your subconscious mind, the part of our brains, or the part of our minds that then controls what we do on a daily basis. So now post-traumatic stress disorder happens when you have had a traumatic experience and then you don't heal from it. So an emotional trauma is just like a physical trauma. Let's say you break your fingers. If you are not going to go to seek medical attention, and they dress the wound, they give you antibiotics, they bandage you every day, it means that that hand might just rot, and you might lose the whole hand, or sometimes if it's serious, you might lose your life. So it's the same applies. Emotional hurts are the same as physical hurts. So if you get hurt and you don't get proper treatment, you have serious problems in the future. That's when post-traumatic stress disorder happens, in the sense that everything that is likened to that event that happens, the brain actually begins to read or to think as if it is happening again. So you find that the brain unfortunately cannot tell the difference between something that is happening in reality and something that is just imagined. So the moment you just imagine a plane crashing to the ground, it then triggers the same experience or the reactions that happened when it actually did happen. So you realize that sometimes when you're talking about, let's talk about like heartbreaks. You were in a relationship with someone and they break your heart, right? And after 2 years, the moment you start thinking about that experience, the brain thinks like it is happening again, because it can't tell the difference. So when that happens, it triggers the pain centers in the brain, and you begin to feel that pain afresh. That's why sometimes it takes very long for someone to heal from a heartbreak. It's because the moment you think about it, the brain will be triggering the pain centers in the brain, and you keep feeling the pain. So that's when a post-traumatic stress disorder begins to happen. So in other words, we are saying that when you've been through a very traumatic experience, it is very, very critical for you to seek treatment.
If you tuned in, please do send through your messages on the number 0719 100 404. It is the Pulse here on Capital 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. And we're talking about managing stress, because it is something that most of us are living right now. There are challenges that are ensuing our families, our businesses, and just, maybe even your health, which is something that could be really troubling you. And so you're probably in that devastating state where you just don't know what to do. How do you overcome that? And so if you also want to be able to watch us, we are live on Facebook at our Capital page. So please, you can go there at Capital 100.4 FM. Or if you want to rewatch this particular broadcast, you can also be able to do so that at least you get time to ponder over some of the things that we are discussing here. And we've got our wonderful life coach Jessie, who's in the studio, to help us to unpack this issue to do with stress, because most of us are stressed. Now, Jessie, we come back to the issue of stress again.
Yes.
There are different types of stresses that we probably are experiencing, and some we can be able to overcome, but others are not as easy to overcome. And you mentioned the issue of maybe losing a loved one.
Yeah.
It's a reality that we deal with.
Yeah.
And I always find myself going into watching videos to see and understand this mystical aspect of our existence as human beings. Or someone is actually terminally ill, and we're having to deal with our loved one, and we're watching this, and it's just a matter of time before we're having to say goodbye to them. How are we to handle that level of stress when it comes to losing a loved one, either suddenly or through a process whereby unfortunately we have to cross that particular bridge? How do you deal with that level of stress?
So that level of stress is what we call grief, right? Let's say, and then we have finally lost our loved one. So the first thing about dealing with that level of stress, particularly grief, is to allow ourselves to feel that pain, because grief is the process that the body uses to seek healing after a devastating loss. So it's very important for you to allow yourself to grieve. There are times when you go to your funeral and someone is really crying, they are throwing themselves down, and people are coming to them and saying, ah, no, sadaro, sadaro, sachema, nozotuka mari, it's not good, how about your kids and stuff like that. That kind of thing is actually very, very dangerous, because a person is supposed to be allowed to process those emotions. So the first thing is allow yourself to grieve, allow yourself to cry. Unfortunately, or fortunately rather, we cry or we grieve differently. You find that you may be twins and you lose your mom. You may just grieve for 3 weeks and you're okay, and your twin might actually take 7 months to grieve. So it's important for you to understand your own self, to say, okay, today I want to cry, today I want to just spend time in bed, today I want to take some pictures and look at my mom, today I want to remember the things that she was saying, today I want to look at the videos, today I just want to talk to anyone, today I want to go out there and just have fun and forget about it. So the very first critical thing about dealing with such devastating stress is to allow yourself to grieve. Now, in the process of allowing yourself to grieve, there are things that I believe can help you to heal, and that's where the issue of self-care comes to play. Self-care just means being aware of what you are thinking and what you are feeling and what you are doing, and then paying attention to your body and your brain needs. For example, if after having had a very long day, your body will tell you that I'm tired, okay, and you do self-care by probably taking a hot shower and you have a cup of chamomile tea, and then you go to sleep, you have done self-care. So when it comes to stress and processing grief, it's very, very important, because I understand that, because I've lost a lot of loved ones as well in the process. So you'll find, Brita, that sometimes you don't even want to sleep, you don't want to eat, sometimes you don't want to bath if it's still very fresh. So all that denying yourself that care will only make things worse. So when you are grieving, it's important to always stop and make sure that you are sleeping. Make sure that you are having a healthy diet. I know that the food won't be tasting, but we know that when we eat food, when we eat healthy food, we are actually empowering our organs and our cells to gain the strength that we need to keep going forward. And also we need to find rest, sometimes even taking afternoon naps, and when you are having a very busy day, to take like short breaks, and then walking outside and just connecting with nature and things like that. So it's very, very important for you to practice self-care. When you're tired, stop. When you feel that you're so low, look for something that is humorous, and look for some jokes, or look for someone who cracks jokes all the time, and just laugh. In other words, to say, when your body tells you what to do, you need to do it, because it's actually trying to get you to help it to heal. So we need to then make decisions and choices and do behaviors that help both the brain and the body to heal.
So we've got some listeners here. We just want to acknowledge them who are tuned in and appreciating our conversations. Cynthia Kumfakosi, thank you so much for your message. And then Mapranga Home and Review 8, thank you so much for your message. Ernest Fulawe and Mavuko as well tuned into the Pulse, appreciating the conversation. We want to thank you so much for your message. Charity Chehera in Milton Park also tuned in and listening in. We want to appreciate you too. Mr. MG, how are you? Thank you so much, and really appreciating you tuning in to Capital 100.4 FM Harare's Heartbeat. Molly Murabiza kuchikurubi support. Thank you also for tuning in to Capital 100.4 FM. Father T, we see you and we really also want to appreciate you. Thank you so much. Babatu Tafara and of course Mama Madison Jr. appreciating you. And so we also want to thank you for all the contributions that are also coming in. Yeah, hanzi ndine mvunzo pano. Kana munhu avangogara achiitwa bully nema-siblings.
Okay.
Then there's peer pressure. Munhu wacho anenge ava kugara ari munhu akungotya.
Okay.
Ungabatsirike sei
okay
kuti zvipere, even if she meets young children or meet other people anenge akungotya. I think the whole issue inenge iripo. Let's talk about family dynamics.
Okay.
Things you can't run away from.
Right. There are things you can't run away from, but at the same time, Brita, there are things that you cannot change. You cannot change the way someone thinks about you, and sometimes you cannot even change the way someone treats you. So sometimes our bodies react to what someone has done to us, and our bodies and our systems react to what the outside environment is doing to us. And unfortunately, when we do that, you find that we'll always be under pressure, we'll always be under stress, and we'll always be traumatized. So my advice, like what I'm always saying to people, is that we have no control over what happens to us, but we have 100% control over how we react to what happens to us. In fact, let me go back a little and say, Brita, if you were to rise up right here, okay, and say nasty things about me, and then I get so hurt, do you know, Kuti, I didn't get hurt because of what you said. I got hurt by how I responded or reacted to what you said to me. So my response to that one is, we kind of really need, that's where the mind coaching comes. We really need to train ourselves to react in a way that serves us and promotes us. We were taught from our socialization that if someone shouts at you, you must feel angry. But we say, no, you don't have to feel angry, because anger puts you into a flight or fight mode, and it begins to affect all your system, your digestive system, your reproductive system. Every system of yours is affected just because someone has shouted at you. So what the best thing you can do is, when someone shouts at you and does things that you don't like, you know, you just have to say to yourself, you know what, I am not going to allow this person to cause me to live a miserable life. It's a discussion that you need to have with yourself. I am not going to take in the toxicity that they are throwing to me. I'm always giving this example that if suppose you want to share something with me via Bluetooth, isn't it, we put on the search, whatever, and it says, can you pair with Brita? If I know that we are about to exchange something, I say pair, and I receive the documents that you've sent me. But let's say I'm in a public place, and then my Bluetooth is on, and then all of a sudden I see a message that says, so and so, a funny name, wants to send you a document, do you accept? And then if I say, yeah, if I say yes, what happens? My phone might just blow up, right? But if I say no, what happens? My phone is safe. So we need to train to learn. We need to learn to train our minds to reject my requests from people. By requests from people, I'm talking about what someone says to you. I'm talking about what someone does to you. I'm talking about what the economy is even doing to you. You have that power. The same way I watch, no, I don't accept. It's the same thing that you must do. This person is ill-treating me. My brothers are ill-treating me. No. I am not allowing that to me, because I know the impact that it has. It puts me into a stress response mode. It puts me into the survival mode. And it is my system and my body that begins to degenerate because of that. So it's a way of training yourself not to get affected by what people are saying. So it's about working on how you respond to what people do or say to you, rather than what they are saying.
Thank you. And this was a question that came through from Paula in Glenview. Thank you so much for that question. And I think I really appreciate what you've just said. But here's the situation.
Right.
You're in the oven.
Right.
It's in the kitchen. It's hot in the kitchen.
Right.
And sometimes it's not easy to step out of it. When you're in it and it's happening, it's like stones being thrown at you.
Yes. Yeah.
So are there action steps, like baby steps you can take? Because replacing a new, an old habit to the new one is not a simple thing.
It's not.
I don't know what you I would lie to you.
Yeah,
the emotions will come up, and you can do things that are even more harmful and dangerous to yourself. And psychologically, all this stuff is coming in, and we've had this conversation now, but they'll be waiting for me, they're gunning for me. And we've heard a lot of people talking about this, the abusive situations that take place in their homes. What action steps or outlets can I that you could possibly suggest that can I take to begin the process of conditioning my mind towards rejecting some of these advances?
Right. How I started it myself, I was talking about how I did it. I started by simple self-talk, just talking to myself. You know, a lot of things will happen, and then I'll you feel it in your body that is coming up. And I'll say to myself, no, Jessie, we are not doing that. We agreed that we are not going to let anyone or anything disturb our peace and disrupt the way our bodies is functioning. So you can start by just the moment you realize that what someone has said or has done is affecting you, just start by talking to yourself. Did you know that your brain, listens to your voice more than any other person's voice? I'll go back to the example that I gave. Let's say, suppose you decide to say very nasty things about me. So what happens is, what affects me is because in my brain I start repeating those words. And then this is what upsets me. But the moment you say something, and then in my brain I change those words and turn it into something positive, that is the message that my brain will take. And then for my brain is not going to get into the fight or flight mode because of the way I have reacted. So I think that the first thing really that should work for pretty much everyone is self-talk, because Notukwaza is what we say to ourselves after someone has said something to me. I was giving this example some other time when I was having a session, and I was saying, let's say I'm walking on the road and someone just starts saying, it's just that we are on radio. I can't use that example. Let me try to think of another. All right, let's say let me try to think of another radio that may not be offensive. And then someone, okay, so actually I know I'm not short, I know I'm not dark, and someone only talk about do I get offended? I don't. I actually say this person, something is wrong because I'm not short and I'm not dark.
How do you take it back to that person?
Sometimes you don't need to say it back to them. It's a conversation between you and you. Because sometimes when you try to take it back to that person, you actually infuriate them more, and they might actually say more things that hurt you. So this issue of trying to train yourself, it is about you and you. It's you receiving and then putting a screen on your mind to say, this I am not taking, this I'm not taking. It is their opinion, they are entitled to it, but unfortunately I don't agree to it. And you just tell yourself those words. They may sound like they don't make sense, but trust me, that's where the breakthrough is. How you react by what you say to yourself, because what you say to yourself is what the brain reads, and what the brain reads is what then you react inside of your head and inside of your body.
Information is power. So I like coaches, because coaches always come and help us to put things into perspective, and there's obviously the aspects of how one is training the mind to receive information, which a lot of us don't know. And so when we get to have these conversations, I think it's very key that we begin to just harness that and start exercising it. Okay,
it needs to be exercised.
Something that